Kelvin Sampson returned to the Sooner State, but is in Stillwater this time, where he's not so much liked in this familial affair. It's a Locked On crossover edition.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It's Parker Andrews has a Locked On Cougs. I think I've already upset Cody Stovall, locked of Oklahoma State.
What are you doing? Why would you do that? That word that we do not speak. See, you got me over here like stuttering McGee because I cannot believe you opened the show saying that word that we do not say about that team 70 miles south we don't speak of.
But it is called that state. What do you call the state then? The Cowboy state? The Poke state?
Not that. I just call it I call it God's country. That's right.
God's country. Okay.
Yeah. I leave it. I try to keep it simple.
And to be fair, Sampson spent a long time in that state. I'm sure he'd similarly think of it, even if the people in Stillwater think of him very much the opposite. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. I should probably point out we're going to be talking about Houston and Oklahoma State matching up in a Big 12 regular season finale. We got a family affair to talk about, some seniors from senior day in Oklahoma State as well, and a new coach, Frank, that's had, I think, a pretty good first 12 months or whatever it's been now. Cody, you saw this game at the end of the season. Did you have any idea that you'd be sitting here feeling this way about this team? I mean, 6-11 is not the best, but I think it's better than it had been. I'll let you take the floor. Oklahoma State 2025-26. How are we feeling?
That's actually a really good question. I'm satisfied. You know, the objective always before the season started was to get to that 20-21 win range, because that typically gets you in the tournament. It was also to get pretty close to that 500 in the Big 12 range, because that typically gets you in the tournament. So I think if those were the objectives coming into the season, Steve Lutz has essentially done a pretty daggone good job. And now you lose the heart and soul of your team and then find a way magically to respond. We've won 2 of our last 3, both in overtime. We've done a lot of really cool things under Steve Lutz, and I do think that we're going in the right direction. Did I think the Houston game would be this way? Yeah, I think I did. I did think by the end of the season that Oklahoma State would at least be competitive with Houston, because I'll tell you why, Parker. Last year, the beginning of the season, it was pretty rough. The end of the season, Steve Lutz went on a really, really, really good run, got in the NIT tournament, won a couple games in the NIT tournament. All of that was a surprise. So the fact that he can get the X's and O's portion obviously figured out as the season progresses, yeah, I did think we would be competitive and be in a position to be somewhat on the bubble here.
You mentioned 1-2 of the last 3. And frankly, I would argue that Cincinnati is better, I think, than people are realizing. Cincinnati's won 6 of the last 7 or something silly like that too, right? But you beat Central Florida in overtime. You beat West Virginia in overtime. And Central Florida's beat some good teams this year. West Virginia's scared some good teams this year too.
Yes.
I guess I look at this as, as Lutz is putting his roster together, the Parsa Fallah injury, which we talked a little bit about before the show, but that does have to put some, lower of the ceiling kind of feel on this weekend, the Big 12 tournament, etc. What are they? I mean, they only had 2 games, right? What do they look like without the big man in the middle?
Well, it's been a Jekyll and Hyde scenario, right? I always say that we live in the bipolar Big 12. Oklahoma State is a byproduct of that directly being affected because of the way that we play the game. So hear me out. We beat West Virginia. We lose Parsa Fallah. Then it's like, okay, how are we going to respond? Are we going to play for Parsa, or are we going to fall apart without our leader? And we got decimated by Cincy, yeah? And then we turn around and we play so inspired. We play pretty dang all good basketball, and we beat UCF. So we don't know what we're going to be, because we saw 2 drastically different outcomes without Parsa. This is going to be the testament, though. Our performance against Houston will be a direct correlation of probably how we're going to perform in the Big 12 tournament, because you have to have this game circled. I'm sure they have all year, and now it means more because you're at 18 wins, right? If you beat Houston and you win 2 games in the Big 12 tournament, you are probably now legitimately in that dancing conversation, I think. And
once you're pushing for it, the Big 12 is that kind of a conference, frankly, right? I think the stat I saw when TCU won against Tech was that no team that's been 500 or better in the Big 12 has ever missed the NCAA tournament, right? That's so
Yeah.
you're pushing for that. That'd take a few more wins in the tournament, but it's really not out of the realm of possibility.
Right.
I guess my thing is, and we'll talk about the Houston side of this too. I got questions about how they play because this feels like two polar opposite teams in some ways. In that, at a 360 whatever teams in college basketball, Houston is playing at the 350th pace.
I was going to
Really
say.
slow, long possessions. In the shot clock, you got nothing. Throw off the rim, hope for the offensive rebound, reset, do another 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State's playing at the 11th fastest pace per KenPom. I mean, 16 seconds average possession length, getting shots up quickly. I would almost think that losing the big man might speed things up, frankly. Is that a good thing for them? It's what makes that I guess it's obviously a good thing. What makes that an advantage for what Oklahoma State's trying to do?
Well, obviously, we like to speed the game up. That's going to be what dictates the outcome. You guys want to slow the game down. We want to turn it into a track meet. If you guys are able to defensively slow us down, then, yeah, I think the outcome is going to be somewhat obvious. You know what we're trying to do. The question is, can Houston stop us? You would think so, yes, right? I think everybody in the country would agree that Houston can likely stop Oklahoma State. But if Anthony Roy gets another 27 points, Kanye Clary gets another 20 points, Vyctorius Miller chips in 15, 20 points, I think that we do have a chance. We are good enough, Parker, to make this a pretty fun experience.
Well, and I've got my quick math here. Over a dozen times they broke 90, and another handful of those are over 100. They score a lot of points.
Yep.
And we'll talk some about Vyctorius Miller and family connections, things like that too, but Anthony Roy, senior guard, he's got almost 17. I guess about to say over 16. It's almost 17 points per game. Looks like to me he also jacks up a lot of threes.
Yep. And some of them, Parker, make no sense, but a lot of them that make no sense go in.
So I guess for the folks who don't have the stats in front of them, 7.5 threes a game, or shoot 7.5 threes a game, shoots almost 40% exactly from behind the arc. That's pretty good on pretty high volume.
Pretty good. Parker, stop. You're saying Sooner State and you're trying to undersell Anthony Roy. What is happening right now?
Well, so sell him to us because honestly, Houston, since joining the Big 12, has not really struggled with Oklahoma State. But this guy is a guy that moved up. He was at Green Bay. He was at New Mexico. He's played low-level basketball. This is kind of his first foray into the Big 12. And as a scorer, he's done really well.
Correct. I mean, and he was going to have to answer the question, but last year before he was injured, he was number one in the country in scoring. He was averaging like 34.4 points a game before he got hurt at Green Bay. And that was the expectation of him coming in. And I'm sure from an NIL perspective, we paid him as such. And thankfully, for the most part, he has performed. There has been a couple games where he went dry, but most of the season has been great. 40%. If you're an NBA scout, right, and you've got somebody with good length, good speed, good range, a good ability to drive, right, that's the most undersold product of Anthony Roy. He's known as a scorer. He's known as a three-point shooter, but his ability to drive is pretty impressive. I mean, he uses that long, lengthy Euro step where it looks like he's traveling 97.3% of the time. But, they get the gather step or whatever it is.
Yeah.
He makes it look cool. And it goes in the daggone bucket. He is one of the best in the league, in my opinion. And I'm sure this is statistically findable. He's got to be one of the best in the league at drawing fouls with and one opportunities. He makes a lot of shots in the paint, and he gets to the line a lot, and he capitalizes from those three-point opportunities. That's what makes him so deadly, is if you want to bump out and defend him on the three-point line, that's great. But when he does drive, he's got NBA capabilities, and it's very visible by his athleticism. He's a lefty that has the ambidextrous ability to go to the other side. He's a hard guy to stop. Now, I will say with all of these bows and ribbons and wonderfulness, he is a defensive liability, right? If Houston's looking at somewhere to slow down Anthony Roy, if you make him a defensive liability and potentially get in his head where he's taking bad shots, then, yeah, that puts us in a fairly precarious position.
Well, it's like you mentioned, he does everything on offense. He shoots over 7.5 threes a game. We mentioned the 40%, but as you point out before I got there, he also leads the team in free throws attempts per game now that the big guy's out, right? And so I frankly see him as a guy that Houston's going to try and find some way to limit. They'll take some part or attempt to take some part of his game away. They'll say, hey,
100%.
Run you off the line, make you shoot
Yep.
free throws, we'll beat you
Yep.
up, or whatever the deal is.
Yep.
And I guess I want to kind of talk about the actual matchups. We'll talk about the Millers and all of that. But we'll do that in just a second because today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at FanDuel. Right now, college basketball is feeling nonstop. It's the best time. It's March, baby. It's March. Big
We're
games,
here.
tight spreads, momentum swings every single night from early tip-offs is an 11 a.m. Central Time tip-off on Saturday to late night West Coast shootouts. I'm sure BYU's playing sometime after dark. There's always action on the board. And right now, FanDuel's giving you a way to turn that action and energy into even bigger potential wins. The college basketball parlay profit boost. Build on college hoops parlays, anything you want. Rivalry games, ranked matchups, Big 12 conference tournament next week, whatever the case may be. Mix up spreads, do this, that, and the other thing. You can get it on some futures too. They got Houston at plus 1,200 to win the whole thing. Look, I understand there are teams ahead of Houston. Houston's going to be in the top 10, the AP poll, I think, again on Monday.
Oh, yeah.
I still think that's pretty good money. Anyway, I think it's pretty good money. Go to FanDuel, make the case. Go safe, go bold. Ride with the team you've been following all season long. It's your parlay, your style. Now even more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. Play your game.
I think you should capitalize financially and go with the Cowboys in the upset. But while capitalizing financially, you got to make sure your taxes are squared away. It is that time. But for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes, it's insanity, right? It's craziness. So let's try to book an appointment. That's not going to be the most convenient. Sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they're really going to get your situation. But this year's, you're getting a major upgrade. This is your time with Intuit TurboTax. Now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. Just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go on about your day. It's the relief of walking in, meeting a real person, and walking out knowing your taxes are squared away. Head on over to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment with TurboTax.com today.
Parker Ainsworth, Cody Stovall, locked on Cougs, locked on Oklahoma State, crossing over ahead of this matchup this weekend. And I don't know how much the Millers will cover each other. I think we've officially gotten to the point of the show, though, that we're going to talk about Vyctorius Miller and Mercy Miller, both of whom are sons of one Master P. Percy Miller. Now, Percy Miller has ties to a lot of college basketball programs. You're following along at home. He himself is somewhat financially involved in the University of New Orleans. Little Romeo Miller from, I guess, back when Cody and I would have been listening to music like this. He played at USC a long time ago. Continued legacy of Millers in college basketball, all tied to Master P. Now, I got to say, Mercy has grown up a lot this season. It looks like Vyctorius has played a lot more than Mercy. He's kind of more involved in what y'all do.
Yeah.
If Houston sells all out to shut down Roy, could Vyctorius have his own kind of day?
That's 100% accurate. And that has happened during times this season where teams have tried to isolate Anthony Roy to some degree. And then Vyctorius Miller has put up 21, 23, 24. So he's shown that he certainly has that capability. When we're talking about, from beyond the arc and Anthony Roy is such a massive weapon there, Vyctorius Miller is equally as good of a shooter as Anthony Roy. But Anthony Roy is kind of that guy right now. Vyctorius Miller is only a sophomore. So, those kind of big time last minute shots, I think traditionally will be going to Anthony Roy. But if Anthony Roy is taken away, there's no doubt Vyctorius Miller is one of those dudes that has to step up and fulfill that scoring role. But recently, man, Kanye, Clary, and Jalen Curry have been rotating at guard. They've been playing absolutely phenomenal as well, which has allowed Vyctorius Miller to be a little bit more of a sixth man. And it's provided a lot of opportunities for him, I think, to expand his game. You talked about Mercy growing up this season. I think this has been a growing season for Vyctorius Miller as well. And it's something that you love to see because I think that's exactly why Steve Lutz is validating He has things going in the right direction because if you take away Anthony Roy, you have a Vyctorius Miller still. And a couple years ago, we didn't have this.
Well, so I don't mean to sound like I'm bursting bubbles here, but so far we've mentioned Parsa Fallah was really good for Oklahoma State and he got hurt.
Yeah.
We mentioned a bunch of guards, including a couple guys you routed off that could be X factory, second, third option kind of guys.
Well, Clary the other day just put up like 24.
They're all guards, right?
Yeah.
I think the tallest player mentioned 6'4" or something like that, right? And
I knew you were going to go there. I don't know why.
I don't, frankly, guards win in March. Maybe it doesn't matter. Houston's a really good rebounding team. Is Christian Coleman going to be able to carry the workload here? Because Jojo Tugler, Chris Sinak, Khalifa Sacco, guys that are all 6'9" or taller. I guess Jojo Tugler, if Oklahoma State fan hadn't heard it, is listed at 6'8", but has a 7'6" wingspan. Yes, it's real. Yes, it looks funny on TV. I feel like I feel like Houston's going to be able to dominate the glass in a way that maybe slows the game down, but ultimately kind of maybe negate some of this, crazy shot making we're seeing in terms of just high percentage of makes at Oklahoma State.
Well, I think the rebounding department, yes, Christian Coleman, he probably has the most length, right? He has the biggest capability to be that stretch for the Cowboys. And defensively, he's got to show some of that off. And he has. He's gotten involved in a rebound game. He's gotten involved in some block shots, but not to the degree that he needs to be. But I'll give you another name that showed up massive in the UCF game. So we got into a little bit of foul trouble. So when that game went into overtime, we did not have the momentum. Like it wasn't going our way. But Andrej Vuković, he stepped up in a massive way. I think he had 10, 11 boards, and the majority of them were within the last 2 minutes of the game. Because of Andrej Vuković and him getting crucial rebounds, we literally were able to get, third, fourth chance opportunities and shave off a minute and a half, 2 minutes of the clock because of the rebounding of Andrej Vuković. He's going to have to not only do that again, but as you mentioned, you're going to have to get more out of Christian Coleman. I'll give you another name. A freshman that's been coming on that we stole from Miami, Ben Ahmed. He's been playing a little bit more. Defensively, he's a little bit too aggressive, so he gets himself in foul trouble quite a bit. But you will see moments where he showcases why he was such a highly rated recruit, why, Miami and a lot of their ACC schools wanted him so badly. And I think the more he gets in shape, he's going to be a factor at some point in time. I just don't know that he's ready to be one now in this game.
Oh, this is very much not basketball-y, but I'm realizing as I'm enjoying hearing you read these names out, Nigeria, Greece, Serbia, Iran,
yes,
Israel, and DeSoto, Texas, too. You got a little bit of everywhere. I have to say, I love the thought that so many of these people's welcome to America moment is Stillwater and Eskimo Joe's and the whole nine. It's a very eclectic international group in a lot of ways that I don't think I fully mentally had put together was there in Stillwater.
Parker, this is why you're the best in the biz, because that was a really good drop. And shout out to Steve Lutz, because there has been Oklahoma State fans that have been frustrated. But as you can see, he had a good reasoning behind his transfer portal class. He went with a lot of overseas dudes that played 2 or 3 years of semi-pro ball. And you can't fault him for it, right? Like he had to get Oklahoma State moving in a different direction. The first year he was hired so late. He had to just basically grab guys at the very end to fulfill a roster. This year he knew he had to do something different. He had to find a way to out-recruit the Kansases and the Houstons of the world. And so he went this international route, and I absolutely love it. And then this upcoming season, he gets the number 1 player in Oklahoma, Jalen Montanati, a legacy of Brian Montanati that was in those Eddie Sutton Final Four kind of teams. And then we also got Altrell Allman, McDonald's All-American, certified, bona fide, possible, like not Cade Cunningham, but that kind of leadership, year 1 capability.
Well, and Montanati, not to sit on recruiting with it too much, that kid can play. I've seen him play. We weren't playing against him. We were just at the same place. When day job was I coach high school basketball, and I was really, really impressed by him. You mentioned the experience here, and before we jump in the third segment and talk predictions and more matchup stuff, I have to say Houston's gotten to grow up a lot this season. Had a really tough stretch they played at Iowa State, against Arizona, and at Kansas in a span of 9 days. this team from Oklahoma State has 6 seniors and 2 juniors, and some of those seniors have more years under their belt than that if you count the international stuff.
Yep.
I am frankly kind of glad we're making this road trip in March for Houston, because in January, those guys have a lot more ball under their belt. There's a better way to say that. They had a lot more experience under their belt, maybe.
As the kids say, pause. I think is what that one.
Yeah, that was bad. They have a lot more experience under their belts than
Leave it in.
Houston would have had. We'll talk the matchup the second time. I'm not going to recover that. But first, before we get to that, today's show is brought to you by the folks over at Indeed sponsored jobs. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inboxes overflowing because you let that one thing slip on the podcast. And that one position you have to fill, maybe mine, is still sitting open when the pressure's on. You need the right hire. This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. And you're not just hoping for the right candidate to stumble across your post. The stat that says it all, though, is in the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching, more time actually interviewing candidates who check all the boxes. Less stress, more time. Less stress, less time, but more results. So the right person cut through the chaos with Indeed sponsored jobs. $75 job credit to get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Go to Indeed.com/podcast right now. Support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire the job for Indeed sponsored jobs.
That's right. And since we're talking basketball, let's talk draft, right? 5 Hour Energy is what's going to get you through March Madness. So you might as well get ready to rock and roll now. With 18 different flavors to choose from, including a new option like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, Cotton Candy. There's something for everybody. You need to get rocking and rolling. Get involved in this draft. Have your opportunity to taste all these crazy flavors like Cotton Candy, like the grape, the cherry, if you want to keep it simple. Parker, I'll tell you, I never thought that strawberry and watermelon would be something that was going to go together effectively. But, dude, I love it. To me, it's my number one pick. It's a home run. It's my Kate Cunningham. It's got the right sweet, the tart, the ultimate flavor duo I didn't ever think was going to be the bee's knees in my taste buds. But that's what it is. So make sure that you guys go get squared away today with 5 Hour Energy so you're ready to rock and roll for March Madness. Today is the day for you to get squared away today. Go to 5hourenergy.com or Amazon.
Parker Angel, Locked On Cody Stovall of Locked On Oklahoma State. I'm still recovering. The Amazon, transition is about the only place that it looked like to me there's not a player on Oklahoma State from. And I think this experience, you like that one. I think this experience thing would have been much more worrisome for me. Houston plays a handful of true freshmen, a redshirt freshman, and a sophomore in their 8-man rotation. The other 3 were starters on last year's championship runner-up team, right? I mean, real experience out of those 3, but the majority of that 8-man for Houston's pretty young. And I guess my question for you is, does that, as you've seen it play out this year, give Oklahoma State, they feel older, they feel like grown men, does that give them an advantage in these kind of matchups typically? Because Houston does look young at times, I would think.
I mean, if we play like we did against UCF, the answer is obviously yes. We were overmatched in the UCF game. You're talking about the rebounding and the height and the length. Yeah, that was slightly problematic, but we did have guys like Kanye, Clary. I don't want to say come out of nowhere because he's had several games this year where he would score 16, 18, 17, he had that kind of range. But he was that second fiddle. He played that Vyctorius Miller role when we played UCF. And I think that allowed other players to kind of settle down. And then you have Jalen Curry comes in. And the dynamics between the two are very, very different. Jalen Curry is so quick. Quick as a hiccup, as my grandpa would say. When that dude drives to the lane, he's difficult to slow down. So if he gets any kind of angle, he's that guy. And then you have Kanye Clary that is now proving that he's willing to take those big-time shots. He hasn't been doing that, right? All season, Kanye Clary has relegated that role to obviously Anthony Roy and oftentimes Vyctorius Miller as well. But the last few games, man, Kanye Clary has proved to have stones of steel, and he's been taking those shots. And I do think it's because he's been multiple places, because he's seen different kinds of leadership, different kinds of coaching. And I think it is crucial for the Cowboys. But again, what bipolar version are we going to see? Are we going to see the Cincy version that got boat raced? Or are we going to see the UCF version, the BYU version, the West Virginia version? That we don't know. We've been so inconsistent this season. But you got to think, okay, so the players know what they're playing for, right? All right. So they know realistically to have any shot at bumping back into the bubble, you have to win this game. And I think holistically, people tend to forget Oklahoma State leads this series all time 13-2. We don't want y'all to tie this thing up because back in the 50s and 60s, we were the bee's knees when it came to Oklahoma State Houston basketball. But yes, our last two wins, 2019 and 1965. The players know this. The players know that you have a top 20 defense. The players know that they're outmatched. They know that rebounding is going to be a difficult proposition. But I think this will be the ultimate test moment for Steve Lutz. For every Cowboy hater on Steve Lutz, if he shows up and performs in this game that we have no business winning, people got to chill out and recognize that he probably is the dude.
Well, and he's got 2 top-tier recruits coming in, so I hope they give him another year at least to see because one of those guys might be a one and done, right, or whatever. But I will say, while you're touting a Houston record that goes back to the 50s, and there were good basketball teams in that mix. Kelvin Sampson, he might have worn a darker shade of red for some of those games, but he has a much different record. I think that there's probably some give and take there as far as going back and forth and comparing the two. KenPom has this matchup as a 10-point Houston win. FanDuel, as of time recording, does not have a line set yet. I do think between it being in Stillwater, you have a lot more to play for, if I'm being honest. I don't mean that negatively. Senior-laden team. I do think there are some things that will keep this close. Personally, I think that Houston's size and aggression will keep win a relatively – look, it'll be an ugly game, as I say. I think it'll be like 70-ish to – maybe 65 or 75 to 70, somewhere in that 5 to 8 point range where, you're kind of holding the team at a distance down the stretch and then maybe make a shot or two in the final 2 minutes, make it feel crazy before he makes some free throws. I imagine you're flipping this thing the other way, Cody, if I'm being honest, but I also think that a good showing, feeling good about yourself going into the Big 12 tournament doesn't even necessarily have to be a literal win as much more. It could be a figurative one too.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to pump a ton of orange Kool-Aid, but realistically, Parker, if we're in the 70s, we have no chance. Like, we have absolutely no chance in God's orange earth if the score is anywhere near the 70s. If it's over 85-ish, then yeah, I do think the Cowboys do have a chance. But again, Houston knows that too, right? If we can keep Oklahoma State to 70 points, they are not going to beat us. But if we let them get running and gunning and their guys get hot and it's in Gallagher-Iba, and I do think because of the leadership of Parsa Fallah and his injury and it being senior night, I do think it's going to be a pretty decent crowd. I think that they're going to be backing this team a little bit more. The players are playing for something still. They just proved that they can do it when they are overmatched. And Steve Lutz is going to have to get very, very creative to get this done. Do I think the Cowboys win? I don't. But I also think that if we get into a track meet and it gets over 82, 85, hold on to your britches, Parker, because it's going to be a ball game, buddy.
Well, and look, I have not watched as much as you have, but I have seen things like those overtime wins we talked of recently, but even probably maybe not necessarily more impressive, but like, I guess you lost to TCU, but that was an overtime game, and that TCU team's pretty good. They just went to Lubbock and beat Tech. I mean, I think that's to say that like there's not so many, and I guess frankly the other TCU game now I have the schedule for me was also close. There's just a handful of things that just could have flipped just slightly the other way. You took Iowa State to 12 points in Hilton and things like that. Like,
can't lose to Colorado, Parker. You can't. You can't.
You can't.
Can't do it.
No, you can't. You beat A&M though, so
we beat A&M. We beat Auburn. We beat Northwestern. We beat BYU. We've got quality dubs, but our inconsistencies have been, and I'm sure if you look at the scores, there's been multiple games where we've lost by 20, 23, 25. 30.
Yeah, those are on there too. I was trying to be positive. I think this would be a fun game for fans to watch. I'm trying to keep on that side of it. But there are a couple of those.
Well,
bullets
again,
along the
things are
way.
looking up. We've won 2 of the last 3. We've proven that we can score with anybody. We can absolutely score with anybody if we can prevent half court stats. Yeah, we're a pretty decent ball club.
Like I said, I think Houston's size and advantage is a big advantage here. But whatever happens in the matchup, both Cody and I will be breaking it down respectively in our places afterwards. So make sure you subscribe and hit into both of those. You get what you got, Codes.
Give me one more thing. Okay, the Kelvin Sampson. Yes, I'll be honest with you. We actually love those days. The Eddie Sutton, Kelvin
Good
Sampson
rivalry.
days. Those were amazing. And those were the best times in Cowboy basketball. And OU back then was really, 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 really good. So, yeah, dude, I absolutely love it. I've always been a big fan of him. I was so thrilled to see him back at Houston. And I think 95% of Cowboy fans agree. We like Kelvin Sampson. And we miss those Eddie Sutton Sampson moments, dude. We miss it.
Yeah, I should have meant. I mean rivalry more like it. I mean Oklahoma and Oklahoma State are a big deal. I don't get it. I guess I had any. I think Indiana hates Kelvin Sampson. It's a whole separate thing. Yeah, that's a whole separate conversation. But I don't. They both are very much beloved in that state. Both as indigenous. They're both members of the Love Me tribe, Kelvin and Kellen, and then and then obviously the Oklahoma connection, all the things they played.
Dude, he might be. You can probably count on 2 fingers how many OU coaches Cowboy fans like. He's one of them.
I'll take it. I
can't even count that high. So there's that.
So there's that. The school, what's the reading school? I guess it's also not a math
the
school.
school for kids who can't read good. I got you.
Like I said, breaking down respect channels after the fact. You also got some football to talk about, so make sure you tune in for more throughout the day today. Locked on Cougs, Locked on Oklahoma State, proud members of Locked On Podcast Network. That means your teams every day. Go Cougs, go Pokes. I don't know when we have a hand sign. You have a hand sign? Hand sign. Yeah, little guns. There you go.
Go Pokes. Parker, I might have to fight you.